Hey guys, it's Raven, and today we're going to be talking about American Armored. American Armored is really a pretty strong deck, probably one of the more solid ones in the game right now. You see from its income, it's characterized by starting out really slow, but then by phase C it spikes to have one of the highest incomes in the game right now. That 150 is, I think, 15 points more than the Panzer or the SS Panzer gets in phase C, and 20 points more than the other two German divisions currently in the game get right now. So with the third armored, it's really you're trying to hold on in phase C and get that big income to start overwhelming your opponents. You're really playing the long game, and I find that's something you need to keep in mind while playing this deck. You don't want to overextend too early or push too much, at least not early on. And just kind of just go through the deck and the different choices I pick, and then later, maybe later today or tomorrow, I'll have a video posted of me actually playing the deck too, or replay casting, one of the two. So Recon tab, there's not all that much choice here. I take in phase A 2 cards of the Recon team. The reason I take this over the phase A scouts is the Recon team comes with a Jeep with a 30 cal machine gun. This means that after you drop the scouts off, the Jeep will stay, or rather after you drop the Recon off, the Jeep will stay, and you can use it as a fire support weapon, as well as something to push the line, because scouts don't push the line on their own on the account of being Recon. Phase A, I'll also take an M8 Greyhound. This is an armored car with a main gun and 2 machine guns. Personally, I don't think it's very good. It's only got 4 accuracy, so you'll find that it misses a lot of its shots. No veterancy at all, so again, it also misses a lot of shots on account of that. It's kind of something I take because there's not many other choices or things I want to invest my points on. But I'd really like it if this M8 was something like, I don't know, 80 points or something. Right now I think it's too expensive, and you want to be careful taking it as a starter unit. But sometimes if you're doing good, you can buy it after 2 or 3 minutes and use it as a exploitation or breakthrough unit if you happen to just completely dominate your guy in the early phases. And then I take scouts in phase B. They come in a armored car with a 50 cal machine gun on the top. Just kind of like a little fire support vehicle. It's a step up from the Jeep that the Recon come in, but it comes in phase B. Infantry, the armored has really solid infantry section. You see I take 2 cards of armored rifles in phase A. These guys are nice because they are 10 men, they don't have a machine gun, but they have a bazooka for confronting enemy armor, and they also have, let's see, they also have 8 M1 Garands and an 2 M1 carbines. These are semi-automatic rifles, so they'll outshoot German like Panzer Grenadiers at closer range, but they don't have that machine gun that lets them fire at 400-meter range. So you really want to use these guys kind of up close and be a little defensive and use them with some care. They do come with the M3 half-track, which is a really nice fire support vehicle. That's really what makes this combo. For only 4 points, you get a decent infantry squad with a bazooka and a pretty good half-track with a machine gun. Again, only 40 points. So you're really relying on these guys for your spacing and your pushing to support your tanks. And I also take an armored leader. Just kind of a standard leader squad, nothing special, but he comes with a half-track that has a 50 cal machine gun instead of a 30 cal machine gun like the regular armored rifles. Again, I think he's kind of just like a nice supporting choice. His half-track's a little bit beefier, and he gives his leadership aura to your armored rifles. Phase B, same thing. I take some more armored rifles to kind of round out my infantry section, so I have a total of 14 armored rifles in my deck. You could take more, but there are some other choices that I think are worth taking as well. So after my complement of armored rifles, I take a card of engineers and a card of armored LMG rifles. Engineers are interesting because they're basically a close quarters squad. They have 2 submachine guns, 7 semi-automatic rifles, and a bundle of frag grenades they'll throw. These guys are really for dominating forests or maybe assaulting a town, because in really close range, i.e. 100 meters and down, you'll just your satchel charge and your machine guns will dominate enemy infantry, and they'll be really efficient at clearing them out. But outside of that 100 meters, if you're going to be using these guys kind of between hedgerows or somewhere that would be outside of the 100 meters, you probably want to choose something else, because these guys are really weak outside of their preferred fighting distance. Kind of the counterpoint to that is the armored LMG rifles. These guys have two Browning 1919s, which are 400 meters, and they're 8 semi-automatic rifles. These guys are really a little bit longer range. They're basically meant to like sit in a hedgerow or sit in a building and shoot at infantry moving past at longer range. They're not meant for going into a forest or assaulting a town. So you really want these guys kind of further back on sentry duty or on overwatch to either support your other infantry or just kind of keep an eye out for a lone recon squad or something trying to push through a gap in your lines. And they also come with the 50 cal half track, which is kind of an interesting addition to them. Outside of that, there's not really much choice in this deck. Could take the engineer leader in phase B. He has an amphibious transport. I don't really see any reason to do that, though. I'd rather just have the leader in phase A. But yeah, since this is an armored deck, the infantry is really not your bread and butter, but I'm really pretty satisfied with it. It's kind of like just enough for what this deck needs. It's not really flashy or impressive, but it's nice and solid, reliable. Now, your bread and butter is the tanks. You see in phase C, I start with 2 Command M5A1s. These are Stuart tanks. They're kind of a nice light tank with 3 machine guns and a little peppy gun. It's not really going to confront enemy armored very well, but it does do good removing half tracks, and at under 600 meters, your 3 machine guns kick in and they'll just help you like really mulch infantry. This is very much an infantry support tank and something for kind of dominating the game in the early phases, especially phase A. You see, it is 30 kilometers an hour, so compared to, say, an enemy Firefly, the Firefly is a lot slower, it's a lot more heavily armored, and it hits a lot harder, but like 2 or 3 Stuart tanks can really run circles around it and go to places the enemy Firefly isn't, and you can take advantage of that position with your more numerous Stuarts to kind of outwit the enemy Firefly if you play it well. I guess this would be a good point to mention too. You say I only have 35 activation points. That's because I kind of float a tank card depending on what kind of game I'm playing. I'm going to play something like Point du Hoc, or like a really close-in map or a really close-in position. I tend to like to add a second card of Stuart tanks. These are the non-command variant, but you get 5 of them. If you're on one of those sort of maps, like these tanks are still really good even in the late game for flank security and a kind of fire brigade where 1 or 2 of them can move up to support infantry or some kind of bulge in your lines. But if I'm not on one of those maps, I'm kind of more open, like the side of Omaha or the middle of Columbell, I'll take a phase B 76 Sherman. This is a pretty, let's see, where is it? This one. You only get 1 per card. It's a pretty good unit. It's kind of your workhorse tank with 13 AP, 1200 meter range. This is basically your heaviest hitting tank, and it's not going to go toe-to-toe with an enemy Panther, but it can kill it. And obviously the closer you are, the more chance you have. And they're also a lot cheaper than the Panther. They're 100 points less. That's really a kind of theme of the American deck, is your tanks are weaker than the German armored deck, but they're a lot more, say, cost efficient. And generally, you don't want to be trading at longer range with a Panther deck, German armored deck. If you're at like 1200 meters and you're trading hits with Panthers, you're probably going to lose. So what you really want to do with all of these Sherman tanks is kind of be a little closer in, maybe 600, 700, 800 meters, and use the superior armor of your jumbo tanks to tank those hits from the Panthers and whatever else, and then use your 76s to be the sword to the jumbo shield and really deliver the killing blow. So So you see a lot of my tank lineup depends on those two units, the Jumbo and the 76 Sherman. Phase C, I take one of each, or in Phase B, I take one of each. You could take more, but that's not very deck efficient, so that's kind of what I stick with for now, and I think it's a pretty good combination. And then Phase C, when you really get that 150 points a minute income rolling, I have 6 76 Shermans and 2 Jumbos. And those, what is that, 5 cards are really my main line. The Stewarts and such are kind of, you know, support, dominate the early phases and such. And then in Phase B, I have a Command Sherman and a just regular 75 Sherman, just to kind of round things out and give me some bulk in that phase. You see I do take the 75 Sherman upvet. You could take 1 card of 5, but I never use more than 3, so I found I'd rather just have it upvet. This is a pretty solid tank lineup. I don't really think there's many changes you could reasonably make, just because you don't have that many options. Some people do like to take the M4A1 Sherman in Phase A. I don't really think that's worth it, because it's a little better, but it's basically the same tank as the Stewart, and it's not going to have as much efficiency as the Command Stewart. It's not going to be as fast, and it's still going to lose to an enemy Firefly. So I'd rather just have more Stewarts than less M4A1s, which are more deck inefficient anyway. And what else? Let's see. I could also see taking out the 75 Sherman and putting in another 76 Sherman in Phase B. I'm going to actually play around with that a little bit in this deck, because I don't see too much use out of those 75 Shermans, and those 76 Shermans are just really important for damaging enemy Panthers and really hitting back at enemy armor. You see I keep saying 75 and 76 Sherman. The 75 Sherman is an M4A3 with a 75mm gun, the 75 in the name, the gun's 75mm. And the 76 Sherman is a M4A3 with a 76 in the name. It has a little bit of a larger gun. It was upgunned from the 75 Sherman. So usually when people say 75 or 76 Sherman, that's what they're referring to as the size of the gun. 76 Sherman has quite a bit more AP power and range. Anyways, support. Support, as you should know, is kind of just a section where all the miscellaneous units go. And of course, fire support. I take the Jeep 50 cal. This is just a really cheap, heavy machine gun that you can buy and put on flanks or use to support stuff. Really just useful as a nice 35-point sentry, and it's a neat little unit. It's hard to get much use out of it out of Phase A, but it can really help you with your Stewarts in Phase A, because again, you're trying to kind of play that wider front and use the mobility of your early units to outwit the enemy's Shermans if you can. Or, the enemy's Firefly if you can. Or the Stug if you're fighting the 17th Panzer Grenadier. I do take Supply Truck in Phase A. I find you never need more than 3, so I only have it in Phase A. I don't wait till Phase B. I take an M20 Commander, just a nice, fast Commandora with a heavy machine gun. Not a great unit, but I'll take it sometimes if I run out of infantry commanders or I don't have enough points for a tank commander. And then this last unit is basically a 105 Sherman. It's got a 105mm anti-personnel gun on the front. Really heavy hitting. This is basically the 3rd armored equivalent of the German Wojta Cromwell. It's got 15 HE, 1200 meter range. It's really good at just kind of picking off AT guns and helping your tanks advance. I only have 2 of them because it's a little bit of a niche unit, but I still like it. Just really good fire support. Anti-tank, you don't really have much choice. This is an armored deck, so unfortunately you only get 3 cards. I take a card of 57mm anti-tank gun in Phase A, which is really the only thing you can take in Phase A, but it's important to kind of have these in case you need to have a hidden gun in a tree line or some kind of security against a Firefly. This is kind of the only thing that'll actually penetrate a Firefly in Phase A, which is kind of the 12th SS Panzer Division's super tank or super unit. It doesn't do a great job at max range. You want to make sure you're microing the gun on and off by using the Z command, which is return fire. This means that it won't shoot automatically when it sees an enemy tank, so you can kind of let the firefly or whatever you're shooting at get close enough that you kind of lure it in, get a little more accuracy, or let it turn its side armor, and then you turn your gun back on and let him have it. Phase B, I take a 76mm gun. This is a little bit harder hitting. It'll definitely penetrate a Panther at the front, but it's not going to do it every time, and it's not going to hit every time either. So it's kind of the same thing with the 57mm gun. You just want to be a little more careful, pick your shots, and you got to have a little bit of finesse to use these guns. But they're basically the best this deck has, and they're okay. You can get the job done with them. On Phase C, I take an upvetted version of that gun. 2 stars really makes it kind of hit a little bit more reliably, and it also increases the rate of fire. Those command stars are really nice to have for your anti-tank guns as well. This is the only card that can take them in the armored deck. Anti-air, this is another part. There's not really many choices for the units you can have in this deck, but they're pretty good choices actually, the ones you do have. I take a Bofors in Phase A just because. Your only other option would be a M16 half-track car, which you only get 1 per card, so I'd rather have the Bofors 2 per card. And after that, it's all about the M15. This unit is probably one of the most well-rounded AA units in the game right now. You see its gun is pretty much the same stats as the Bofors. It's got same accuracy, same range, same AoE, just a little bit less HE. Plus it has those 2 Browning heavy machine guns to help it out. And on top of that, it's also mobile and costs the same as the Bofors. So the M15 really needs to be your bread and butter AA half-track. Probably 2 or maybe 3 of them will stop most bombers from dropping their bombs even and scare them away. But as always, you're going to have to rely a little bit more on planes to actually get the plane kill. These are really like an area of denial and just to panic planes, and then you got to use your own interceptors to kill the enemy planes. You see I take 2 cards of these in Phase B and 1 card in Phase C for a total of 8. Probably don't need that many more than that, so that's all I take. I don't use this last card slot. I could. Just make sure you're kind of moving them around after they fire so they don't get artilleried. Speaking of artillery, Americans have some pretty good options actually. You get a Phase A half-track mortar, which is really nice because it's 2 per card. It's a little more expensive than the German variant, which is, I think, 85 points. But because you get this one 2 per card, it's a lot more deck efficient. If you lose one, you still have another one you can call out. This is really a close support unit to mortar anti-tank guns or infantry squads, and then provide the smoke to kind of cover your advance or cover your retreat. With artillery units, you see the little HE damage icon with the kind of orange explosion is its damage. And if it has another gun with the kind of little white puffy icon, that means it can lay down smoke. So this particular unit can lay down smoke, and so can the M7 HMC, but some artillery units can't, so just kind of be aware of that. Americans are lucky because I think all of their howitzers can. You see, this is the M7. It's colloquially known as the Priest. It's not really a very accurate howitzer, but it is nice and affordable, and you can kind of use it to just blanket an area. You see, I have a total of 6 of them in my deck. That's probably too many, to be honest. If you call out 6 of these, you're kind of a D-bag, to be honest. But you know, they're really just for kind of suppression and showering an area to kind of loosen it up for your advance. They're not going to be very effective at counter battery because they're not very accurate. They don't fire very quickly. But they're really they're a decent little supporting unit for what they need, for what you need them to do. If you need something a little bit heavier, there's also the Calliope. This is just basically an MLRS, a rocket launcher on top of a Sherman tank. It has 60 rockets, and I believe if you fire it, tell it to fire position, it'll fire all of them. So I would recommend using it in bursts of, say, 20 rockets, where you fire Click fire, watch it fire about 20 of them, and then hit stop or move the Calliope so it'll stop shooting them. And that way you can kind of stagger your volleys as you need them, because firing all 60 at once is overkill. Really effective, really good suppression unit. It's not going to kill too much, but as a suppression unit, it's pretty much unmatched in the American arsenal. And it's a good, good supporter to your priest howitzers. Definitely guard this unit though, because you only get one per card, and people are gonna probably be aiming for it. They would love nothing more than to kill the Calliope that's been annoying them all game. Let's see, Air Force. Air Force has quite a few options actually. You see there's some recon planes. I personally don't take them just because you don't really have that many slots for airplanes in this deck. You only have 3. You just want to be kind of aware of that. This one right here is a rocket plane that's also a recon plane. It's got rockets. I don't know though. They're really inaccurate and they're just not very reliable, so I would rather not use Rosie the Rocketer. Instead, I take the P-38 Lightning, which also has rockets, but it's also really fast and has decent armaments. So this is a pretty neat little plane for kind of early game support in Phase A, and because it's affordable, it's fast, and it has decent air-to-air armament, you can use it as an interceptor to chase down enemy planes that are bombing you on the evac. And compared to, like, say the Germans get a BF-109 in Phase A that's similar with rockets and everything, but it's 180 points. So if you can get one of these and your enemy gets a 109 rocket plane, you're like 50 points ahead, and then you kill the rocket plane. They're pretty much done for in the air or at least for Phase A. And in general, the Allies have a lot easier time in the air through Phase A because the Germans don't have many options. So this thing can really dominate the skies early on, and then also be good fire support throughout. I wouldn't rely on it to kill many things though. These missiles are really, or rather the rockets it has are really more about suppression. If you're trying to kill things, the Thunderbolt's where it's at. These things will pretty reliably kill or at least severely damage infantry out in the open, and they'll reliably kill anti-tank guns and soft-skin vehicles. That's why I take a total of 5 of them in my deck, because they're relatively affordable. They're really nice and fast, 650 kilometers speed, and they have decent armament too. This is a really nice multi-role plane, and I really like the rockets, so that's why I take 2 of them. You could take like the Lightning, P-38 Lightning bombers, but they're kind of slow, and I don't find that their bombs kill enough relative to the P-47 to make it worth it. And also because they're so much slower, they're a lot easier for AA to stun and make it so they don't drop their bombs. You can also take the Mustang, but in my experience, the P-47 performs better anyways because it has more machine guns and it's faster. So I would rather just kind of stick with the multi-role, even though the Mustang is kind of a good, affordable air superiority option. As you can see, that's my American deck. Like I said, the tank slot's really malleable. You can take out like the 76 Sherman and put in a 75 Sherman, or you can take that out, put more Stuarts in. Really kind of be flexible with your tank section, and I would recommend tailoring it to whatever kind of battle or fight you think you're going to be going to. Yeah, overall pretty good deck. I like it. I'm kind of worried it's not going to be as good as it is now when more decks are in that can penetrate a jumbo from the front. Right now, all you really got to worry about is the PaK-43 gun on the ground, but later on there's going to be like Yag Panthers, there's going to be King Tigers, and they'll really kind of make the give the jumbo a run for its money. But right now that 21 armor is just really nasty. It can bully back Panthers and other units, and really solid tank. And that's good because it's a solid deck. So like I said, I'm going to have some gameplay or a replay cast of this up a little later, and thanks for watching. I guess that's it, so take care.